Well, here we were, back in Boulogne again. And what a holiday we'd had. We'd seen 4 countries, had every kind of weather, and a wonderful time. Yet it was only 9 days ago since the Canterbury came alongside this very quay, and our tour began. Waiting over there was our coach. We were going to see Europe, and see it in comfort. And down on the quayside, to help check our baggage through the customs, was Cook's interpreter, just as they'd said. The wife and I had been looking forward to this for a long time. We'd got the kids married and off our hands, and now at last we were going to take a holiday, away from it all, in foreign parts. Pretty soon, the tour manager who was traveling with us had climbed up beside the driver. A cheerful bon voyage, and we were away. The driver seemed a steady sort of fellow. Good. We settled down and watched the road unwinding. I seemed to remember that at the end of this stretch lay Ypres. And so it proved. Over there was the Cloth Hall. It had changed a bit since I was here in the 1418 war. As we came through the Menin Gate, the weather didn't look very promising. Still, it was evening, and soon we'd be in Brussels for our first night stop. Brussels, now there's a city for you. Gay, full of color, exciting. Lots of good-looking shops. And fine old historic buildings like those in the Grand Place or the Palais de Justice. We wandered around for a while, then back to the hotel in nice time to see the porters carrying our baggage out to the coach. We'd stayed that night at the Hotel Albert Premier, one of the best in Brussels, bang in the center of the city. They'd certainly picked the right hotels for us, like the one, for instance, where we stayed the following night at Luxembourg, the Hotel Paris. Or the night after that, the Hotel du Parc at Mulhouse. This was the way to travel. No fuss, no bother at all. And how easy it was crossing frontiers. When we stopped at control posts, instead of officialdom, we found friendliness. Already, we fellow tourists were getting together. Now, out came the cameras. The officers joined in the fun, posed for us, and a good time was had by all. Luxembourg was behind us now. We were back in France, in Lorraine, and heading for Metz, and a halt alongside the cathedral. And then, morning coffee. It was market day here in Metz, and the wife never could resist a market. Very soon, we were parley-vooing with the local peasantry. We listened to them bargaining. We spent some of our francs. We tried out our schoolbook French and enjoyed every minute of it. We could easily have spent the entire day in Metz, but our tour manager had promised us a wonderful lunch at Nancy, and that was a date I, for one, wouldn't miss. By afternoon, the country had begun to change. We were climbing now. Up over the Col du Bonhomme into the Vosges Mountains. Towards evening, we were dropping down the other side of the pass. It was getting late in the day, but the mist had cleared, and the sun came out as we drove on through a Hans Andersen kind of village called Kaiserberg towards Mulhouse, our next night stop. Next morning, after breakfast in Mulhouse, we had an hour to spare. Unlike Metz, the marketplace here was quiet and peaceful. Hardly anybody about, probably still asleep in their beds. A typical Sunday morning, someone remarked, as we made our way back to the hotel and the coach, and the next leg of our journey. At Bâle, our next halt, it had started to rain, but not enough to stop us having a look round. Bâle, we had been told, was one of the crossroads of Europe. The city of cycles, someone called it. And chocolate. Hot chocolate for me, added the wife. The cafe terraces were deserted. Still, the rain wasn't going to damp our spirits. After all, we could always see the country in comfort from inside the dry coach. Sit back in a cozy armchair, as it were, and watch the world go by. It was in just such a way that we saw the famous Rhine Falls at Schaffhausen. Within an hour, the weather had taken a turn for the better. The clouds rolled back as we wound our way over the foothills and towards Lucerne. Then the Alps began to show up. The sun shone, and now we knew we were approaching the real Switzerland. That evening, we came to Lucerne and the Grand Hotel Europe. And what a grand hotel it was. The view from the bedroom window alone was worth the money. Next day, we spent the whole morning exploring Lucerne. We saw the cathedral and Lucerne's famous lion, carved out of the solid rock and commemorating those Swiss guards who died defending Marie Antoinette during the French Revolution. We wandered down to the river that runs into Lake Lucerne and fed the ducks. And then we treated ourselves to pastries and coffee out on a sort of terrace overlooking the lake. A little later, we found ourselves in the town market, where we dug down into our pockets, counted our Swiss francs, and tried to make up our minds what best we could spend them on. Then we discovered the old town, a patchwork of quaint squares and brightly colored buildings. We admired the paintings on the walls and the elegant wrought and gilded signs that hung above the narrow streets. Then, down to the river again, spanned by curious wooden bridges. It was here that we bumped into some of our party and were reminded that soon we'd be off on our journey again. Pity in a way. We were both sorry to be leaving Lucerne. The drive over the mountains to Interlaken that afternoon was really superb. We stopped for a while above Lauterbrunnen, lying in the fold of a typical Alpine valley, at Steinweiler, to admire the wood carvings by the roadside. And so to Interlaken, in good time to find our way to the Kursaal Garden, and to take a look at the floral clock there. What a happy way the Swiss have with flowers. Like those leaf crowns the children were wearing at Grindelwald. We were commenting about this as we sat out in the warm sunshine after lunch at Grindelwald. idly watching the chairlift carrying folk towards the mountains towering above us. We'd had a whole day in Interlaken to do just whatever we liked with it. In the morning, we'd strolled around the old town and found it pleasant. Interlaken seemed an old-fashioned, quaint sort of place. Just the spot for a lazy holiday, said the wife. As we came down to the river and wondered what we'd do next. A trip on the lake or Scheidegg and the mountains. Lucerne or Interlaken? Which had we enjoyed more? It was a bit difficult to say. We did agree, though, that the Hotel Metropole at Interlaken was well up to the high standard of hotels we found on this tour. And that this was indeed a lovely country to spend a holiday in. A few hours later, we were bidding Switzerland goodbye, but France was still to come. France with its sleepy villages, shuttered shops, bicycles, and fussy little trains. We stopped for petrol at foreign-looking garages with pumps marked in unfamiliar litres. Dallied at amusing little wayside cafes and bought souvenirs. And we saw Paris. We were in Paris by mid-afternoon. There was time for a sightseeing drive that took in all the famous spots in this wonderful city. The Eiffel Tower. Notre Dame. The Arc de Triomphe. Sacré-Cœur. We finished up in Montmartre. It was just as I'd always imagined it. And promised ourselves we'd come back after dinner and see Paris by night. And we did. Next morning found us tired but happy and on the last lap of our journey. As we left Paris and sped along the road to Boulogne, I began to recall some of the many things we'd not forget in a hurry. Things like our first sight of that lovely wrought ironwork in the Place Stanislas at Nancy. The approach to Beauvais Cathedral. The Jungfrau from Interlaken. Those beautiful gardens near Lucerne. Bern's famous medieval clock. And the bear pit down there by the Znanego Bridge. And then there were those carp, literally boiling in the lake at Fontainebleau. And the fun we had window shopping at Namur. The nice people we'd met. The helping hand of our tour manager. The food, the cafes, everywhere, and the service. And the wonderfully comfortable journey we'd had in spite of the sometimes unkind weather. Then, suddenly, here we were again, pulling onto the quayside of Boulogne. Our 9 unforgettable days away from it all were ending until next year. And then we'd have another tour. Yes, indeed. We and cooks would see to that.